Looks like we're live on YouTube. The format of this meeting consists of board members, applicants, and city staff attending a live online Zoom meeting and the public viewing the meeting on the city's YouTube channel. For applicants, please only speak when the chair indicates time to do so. In addition, as usual, prior to addressing the board, please state your name, address, and affirm you will tell the truth. Public viewers on YouTube have the ability to type in comments with a Google account. If you enter in a comment on YouTube, please first indicate your name and address. Comments can be entered at any time, but will relate to the board when the chair indicates it's time to do so during the public hearing. Please also note multiple comments can be entered, but each comment is limited to 200 characters. If you're having difficulties commenting, please email me at adutton@worcesteroh.com. Finally, please be aware there's an approximate 15-second delay between the Zoom meeting and the live stream on YouTube. That's all I have for now, and I'll turn it over to Stuart to begin the meeting.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. This is the regularly scheduled June meeting of the City of Worcester Board of Building and Zoning Appeals. This is a volunteer board of Worcester citizens established to hear planning matters as specified in the City of Worcester Planning and Zoning Code. My name is Stuart Fitzgibbon, and I am chairman of the board. Because these hearings are a matter of legal record, this meeting is recorded. As Andrew indicated earlier, we ask that if and when you speak loudly and clearly. We also ask that prior to speaking, each speaker gives their name, address, and affirmation to tell the truth. The applications to be considered tonight are applications number BZA 21-08, BZA 21-15, BZA 21-16, and BZA 21-17. Following tonight's meeting, the applicant in each case will receive notification of the board's decision regarding their application. Our first order of business is roll call. Ben?
Here.
Greg?
Here.
Mark?
Here.
Ken?
Here.
Doug?
Here.
And I too am here. Our next agenda item is approval of our May 6th, 2020 meeting minutes. Are there any questions, comments, corrections to those minutes? I'm hearing none. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Thank you, Ken. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Greg. All right, it's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of the May meeting. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed say no. All right, the minutes are approved. Our first application this evening is BZA 21-08. Michelle Miller requesting an area variance from Planning and Zoning Code Section 1113.01E 22A 1 and 2 to allow a ground-mounted solar energy system taller than permitted and within the front yard at 444 West Milltown Road in a C1 zoning district. Is there someone here to speak on behalf of this application?
This is John Picard. My address is 50 North Avenue Northeast, Massillon, Ohio. I'm the architect, and I affirm to tell the truth.
Thank you very much. Please proceed.
I'm on a phone, so I can't see what you're seeing, but we have provided you with a site plan. This is our solar array panels, and the property is the Massillon cable TV facility, and we are on a corner lot of Commerce Parkway and Milltown Road. And our request is to first to allow the panels to be in the front yard. And as we are a corner lot, we have two front yards, if you will. And we've set some distances off of our right-of-way or property lines off of Milltown We're 35 feet 4 inches off of our property line. And on Commerce Parkway, we are 15 to the solar panels. We also have a 6-foot screened fence that wraps the entire array of panels. And we're also requesting, your permitted height is 8 foot and our panels are at 8'6". There's probably a representative from the Paradise Energy Solutions on the line also that may want to speak to some other details. We've also provided all the requested landscape screening on both streets, both Milltown and Commerce. Thank you.
Is there someone else who wants to speak on behalf of this application?
Yeah, I would. My name is Andy Hostetler. I'm with Paradise Energy Solutions. Address is 525 Belden Circle Northeast in Sugar Creek, Ohio. And I am the project manager for this project that's going in. Proposing here is for Mass on Cable TV.
Okay, before you go further, could you affirm to tell the truth?
I do, yes.
Thank you.
And just to speak to a little bit of the project itself, we are filling up all the available roof space, as you can see on their available buildings. We have taken into consideration the customer's usage and amount of electricity that they've consumed on site, and are planning to cover roughly 94% of their energy usage with the solar system. So like I said, we've utilized as much roof space as possible, and in order to get that and make it economically feasible for MCTV, the reason that we're requesting the variance on the ground mount area is due to economic feasibility and lack of room on a roof to be able to meet their demands. As far as the ground mount sizing and height, we are using just a standard portrait array with 2 panels in portrait on top of one another. It's very, very typical. We would do our best to get it down to the 8 feet, but 8'6" is the standard sizing for the manufacturer in this case.
Are there other manufacturers out there that would provide an 8-foot elevation?
Most of them that we've dealt with, we partner with a couple, and they're actually a little taller. The other appealing part of this manufacturer is they're located in Ohio, so the materials are coming from a local source as well. But that's on the lower side, I would say, of different options that are out there.
Do they have to be the 2 feet off the ground?
We can get a little bit, we can cheat it a little bit sometimes, depending on the terrain and the levelness of it. A lot of times the tilt arm of the array, it fastens right at ground level, and it really can't go further lower down into the ground than what we are able to do there.
I guess I'm having a hard time picturing them as I drive by there, and it's going to be very visual to see the panels and the fence there. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, we were trying to screen it as much as we can with to match an existing fence that's around the customer storage yard. So we're going to use a fence with the white fence slats in there to try to hide it a little bit, as well as the trees and landscaping around there as required and requested. You'll certainly be able to see them.
Is that existing landscaping, or would you be adding some there?
That'd be all new and added in.
Is there anything else anyone wanted to contribute on behalf of this application?
This is John Picard again.
Yes.
I'd like to speak to the landscaping again. On our drawing there, we show at the top of the page on the right-hand side an image of the fence with the landscaping in front of it. The concept with the slat vision panels in the fence, especially being the slightly off-white, kind of a gray, light gray color, and the vegetation. All of our vegetation is evergreen except for the thornless locust. So our intent is not only to create a screen, but to kind of soften the whole area. So I really think with the 6-foot fence and the elevation of the road, the fact that the road is slightly lower than the property, the view of the panels is going to be very difficult to see. You may see the tops of them, but we have a lot of landscaping. Is a substantial amount of landscaping, creating a lot of layering, if you will, between the white slats of the fence and the 3 types of evergreens we're planting, and the mounded landscaping bed. We've created a layering effect. So really your eye goes to the landscaping and the white slats of the fence, opposed to, quite honestly, anything behind it. So we've worked hard to create that screening effect for a corner lot. Thank you.
Are there other questions from members of the board? All right, hearing none at the moment. Andrew, let's go ahead and open the public hearing on this application.
Okay.
And again, we have a little bit of a lag between us and YouTube, so we'll wait a few seconds for the message to get across.
And it doesn't look like I'm getting any comments.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. We'll declare the public hearing closed. Any further questions from members of the board?
I guess I just have one quick question.
Sure, go ahead, Mark.
Just I know that you were already asked to this, but are you saying that due to the manufacturers you work with, there's not really a feasible option of having this meet the 8-foot parameters that are in the code?
Yeah, this is Andy Hostiller. I do not know of another way to do that. That would then fit everything that's wanting to be proposed here. I mean, there are options out there more for residential areas that have one panel per row that are shorter. But as far as to be able to fit everything in the space constraints that we have here with the setbacks, the existing retaining ponds, and the amount needed to cover the need of MCTV, this is I think a very good option for them. That's going to look nice, and again, be very close to that regulation.
All right, thank you.
I have a question for you, Andrew. I know this is probably digging way too far down into the weeds of the code. But do you have any sense of why that 8-foot height was specified in the code?
I believe that was placed in our code in our update in 2018. We previously didn't have any regulations for solar, and that may have been a standard, 3 or 4 years ago that was incorporated. And solar panels are something that's moving pretty quickly, so maybe that's changed. They've grown a little bit taller to gain more energy. So I really don't know the specifics, but that's kind of the history of it, I suppose.
Okay, all right, well, that's helpful. And that just reinforces my earlier question on, what is the industry standard? And presumably in order to be able to tilt a bigger panel, you need greater height at the tilt point. Any further questions from members of the board? All right, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion that we talk about this in executive committee.
All right, I'll take that as a motion for executive session. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, I didn't catch who was first on that.
Ken.
Ken, all right, we'll give it to Ken. All right, all in favor of an executive session signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed say no. All right, Andrew, if you'd put us into executive session, please.
See what I can do.
The joys of Zoom technology.
All right, so the boards went into a breakout room to executive session for discussion. They'll come back in and either ask more questions or render a decision. So
Thank you. Still going on.
Let's see, we got everybody back from the yeah, I think we're all back, Andrew. I'll entertain a motion to return from executive session.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Greg.
Second.
Seconded by Ken. All right, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed say no. All right, we're back on the record. I'll entertain a motion regarding this application.
I move to approve this motion.
Okay, a motion by Mark. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ken. All right, voting in the affirmative on BZA 21-08. Mark?
Yes, I'm going to vote yes for this application as presented for a number of reasons. Namely, first, the uniqueness of the large corner lot. We run into these front yard issues with corner lots all the time, and so that is no different in this case. And then in regards to the 8'6" panels versus the 8 foot in the code, I do think that might be the minimum necessary to make this a feasible project for them. They have larger setbacks than a lot of other lots in the area or other lots around town, so that will hopefully help shield some of the visibility of it from the road. And we haven't heard any objections from the neighbors. And so I would imagine, due to the other applications we've received in the past that have been somewhat controversial, we've seen a lot of objection from the neighbors. So for all those reasons, I'm going to vote yes.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Ken?
I'm also voting yes for the reasons that Mark stated, and also because I believe the applicant has made a real good faith effort to screen these as much as possible and provide additional landscaping. The screening being similar to their existing fencing on the property to make that consistent. And the landscaping appears to be generous. So I believe these will not be an eyesores per se. I believe they're, in my mind, no different than power poles, which are along the street, some of which are quite large and are necessary. It's a necessary utility.
Okay, thank you, Ken. Doug?
I don't really have a problem with it, 8'6", and if I understand this correctly, that varies during the day in the direction that they're tilted. So I don't think 6 inches is a percentage of a real big deal. And I agree with Mark and Ken, and And specifically too, the landscaping and the fencing are all appealing. I mean, this is something new to us because we've never heard something on this. And so we're hesitant. It's a learning process for us. And I just hope, we haven't set a precedent that bites us later, but I'm going to say yes.
Okay, thank you, Doug. Greg?
I'm going to vote no. Well, I'm glad to see the use of solar panels. I think the project of this size just doesn't fit into that area. And I think we're starting a potentially, when people come along and want to put panels in their front yards or side yards, it's going to be a difficult precedent to have. So I'm voting no.
Okay, thank you, Greg. Ben?
I will vote yes for this. I think as Mark kind of stated, the extra large size of a corner lot in this commercial area that's owned by a company that already has an established building plays a role, and the fact that they are setting it back further than the minimum setback requirement plays a role that would need to be considered in any other cases going forward. Also stated the fact that they're putting so much shrubbery and bushes in that over time will grow and continue to conceal this project needs to go into consideration as well. So that's why I'm voting yes.
Okay, thank you, Ben. As others have said, particularly Greg, this is a tough one for us, and that it's the first case that I think any of us are aware of with a major solar panel installation in the city. So we're trying to tread very carefully to cite the unique circumstances of this situation, if you recall the evaluation criteria. And I believe we've done that as stated by my colleagues. So I too am going to vote yes for all of the unique factors cited. And guess I want to also then put on the record my opinion along with my colleagues that we're endeavoring here not to set a precedent, and that any future requests for installations are going to be weighed specifically on the factors of the situation involved, and that this isn't just opening the door to wherever people want to put solar installations. So that having been said, it's a sufficient vote to approve, so the application is approved.
Thank you.
All right, next up, we have application BZA 21-15. Pardon me while I sort my papers out here. BZA 21-15 is Tammy Harper requesting an area variance from Planning and Zoning Code Section 1113.01E8 G1 and 2 to allow a fence taller than permitted and without openness in a corner side yard at 409 Saybolt Avenue in an RT zoning district. Is there anyone to speak on behalf of this application?
I'm Tammy Harper. I live at 409 Saybolt Avenue in Worcester, Ohio. And I would just like to replace an existing fence that's already there. It's wooden.
I'm sorry, before you get too far, would you affirm to tell the truth?
Yes, I affirm to tell the truth. I'm
Thank
sorry.
you. That's all right. Please proceed.
I'd just like to replace an existing fence that's already there that is starting to fall apart. It's been there for over 10 years. There's never been a problem with neighbors or anything, with it being the 6 foot high. I do have dogs. That is my concern of going lower than the 6 foot. I'm replacing it with a vinyl fence, would like to replace it with a vinyl fence, which would look nicer and last longer. And I believe just the part in question is the part in front of Park Road. The the 29 there.
Were you the property owner when this fence got approved? The original fence got approved, you said roughly 10 years ago by the BZA, or was that when you bought the
Well,
house?
it was there when I bought the house. I've been here for 10 years and it was there when I bought the house.
Okay.
So it was already approved for the variance at that time, my understanding is, when they originally put it up.
Okay.
So to clarify, it did not receive a variance initially. It did receive a zoning certificate. The code was different at that time. And depending how you read it, would have allowed this fence. So it was approved by the planning department at that time.
And I'm assuming, but just wanted to confirm that the entire fence is going to be replaced, not just like the side and the back, but everything, correct?
The entire fence, yes, correct.
Okay.
But in terms of what's at issue with the zoning code, it's just the section along Park that is imposing the requirement.
That is my understanding.
Andrew, am I looking at that correctly?
Yes, everything in that blue box there between the house and the garage and park would need to be 4 feet and 50% open, and it's proposed as 6 foot and solid. Everything else is permitted as shown.
How far off, and maybe it's more obvious in one of these pictures and I missed it, how far off Park Street or Park Road is the fence?
I think in picture 13, it kind of shows.
Oh, there it is. I see it now. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. I've never measured it, so I don't know. That's the back. There you go. And Park Drive is actually that goes back to the old football field. So it's not a real busy road or anything.
Are the dogs the main reason that you went 6 feet instead of 4 feet? Are they large dogs?
Yes,
Yes to both.
yes. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
And then what is the reason for not having any kind of visibility through the fence, like any kind of spacing of the slats?
Well, because we do get traffic, they do still do some, well, as you can see, there's houses, and we do still get, they have, I believe, Pee-wee football and stuff back there. So at that time of the year, it does get very busy with cars and people walking. And my dogs would bark at everybody and everything. And if they can't see, then they can't cause as much noise and distractions. And they are not out all the time either, but when they are out.
Other questions from members of the board?
Was there any neighbors that wrote in? Were there any?
I didn't receive any communication from neighbors on this application.
Thank you.
All right, any further questions from members of the board? All right, hearing none at the moment. Andrew, let's go ahead and open the public hearing on this application.
Okay. It doesn't appear I'm getting any comments on YouTube.
All right, thank you, Andrew. We will close the public hearing. Are there any further questions from members of the board? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
A motion to approve as presented.
Thank you, Ben. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Greg. All right, moved by Ben, seconded by Greg on BZA 21-15, voting in the affirmative. Ben?
I will vote to approve this application. It's replacing an existing fence that's already there. So it's not, as point D says, it's not going to change the essential character of the neighborhood. If anything, it'll add value to it because it's a new fence. It's going to look nicer and be newer. So that's why I'll vote yes.
Okay, thank you, Ben. Greg?
I'm also voting yes. Ben really gave my reasons, but I'd also say that there's no neighbors objecting to it. So I think we should let it go through.
Okay, thank you, Greg. Mark?
I'm also going to vote yes. It's a corner lot, so that kind of makes this the reason they need the variance. And then also I would say that the 6-foot fence is a substantial distance from that intersection there of say Bolton Park. So there's not going to create any visibility issues for people coming on or off the road. And so for those reasons, I'll be voting yes.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Ken?
I'm voting yes for all the reasons cited by my colleagues already.
Okay, thank you, Ken. Doug?
I'm going to vote yes. Park Road, and I sat down there for a little while, is pretty quiet. And occasionally, I think the Pee Wee football is the only group that continues to use it. I used to go down there a lot with lacrosse. But it's a very quiet street. I think that's one, two. I mean, the street dead ends into Mauer Field. And I agree with Ben, it's already a fence there and it is getting a little shabby. And I think this will be an improvement, putting up this fence. So again, I'm voting yes.
Okay, thank you, Doug. I support all of the arguments from my colleagues. My only point of hesitation is the making the fence solid. because there's just something about a fence that's got some visibility to allow light through it. But I think the unique set of circumstances, particularly given the activity traffic going down to the field, and the fact that the fence already exists, as noted by my colleagues, I'll vote yes for this as well, given the unique situation. So your application is approved.
Thank you very much.
All right, next up, we have BZA 21-16. Matthew Long requesting an area variance from Planning and Zoning Code Section 1115.04A to allow a building to exceed the maximum setback. Section 1123.04B to allow fewer street trees than required. Section 1123.05A2 and B6 to allow less site landscaping than required. And section 1125.03B5 to allow parking within the required side and rear setbacks at a property located on the south side of East Liberty Street with parcel number 64-01544 in a C4 Central Business Zoning District. Is there someone here to speak on behalf of this application?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Matthew Long. My business address is 225 North Market Street, and I affirm to tell the truth. I am really pleased to be with you tonight at the third of 3 public meetings on this project. We started off tonight at Design and Review Board, received their blessing, and then moved on to Planning Commission, and now finally with Board of Zoning Appeals for a very exciting downtown development project on East Liberty Street. For those of you that know me, I've been active trying to redevelop the East Liberty Street neighborhood for the better part of a decade now, and I think that this is appropriately one of the cornerstone projects. I'm happy to be joined by my development partner, Chad Borman, as well as our commercial tenant, which we announced today, Mike Mariola. And I'll let Mike speak here in a second to give you a little bit of color on what he's up to on the first floor. But just at a high level, the project is a 2-story mixed-use building. There will be new construction. The first floor will be a single-tenant commercial restaurant that will have approximately 7,500 square feet plus a 3,000 square foot outdoor patio. And the second floor will be 8 apartments with a mix of 6 one-bedroom units and 2 two-bedroom units. To the application tonight, it's always difficult when doing infill projects downtown to balance out all the criteria set forth in the code and reach a reasonable resolution that satisfies as much of the code as possible. But in some instances, it's appropriate certainly to come and seek the BZA's review of variances that will help the project fit the site. And in this instance, we have a series of area variances that derive from that site planning. And I'll go into those in more detail, but generally what we tried to do is start with sizing the building appropriate to the project. So what size building did we need to have in order to fit the first floor commercial use and to fit 8 appropriately sized apartments? So with that in mind, the next criteria is where we put it on the site. In this instance, the code would love the property or the project to be located up in the right of way, as would we, but oppositely, we don't want to interfere with the line of sight of the 2 adjacent buildings, both the former CSB branch, the 1930s Art Deco gas station to the east, or Muddy's to the west. So in turn, what we've done is stepped the building so that the average distance back from the Liberty Street right of way is the average of those 2 adjacent setbacks. So that, of course, is relevant to our first variant. From there, the next consideration is how do we appropriately fit in a safe parking lot in the rear of the building to maximize the amount of on-site parking. always a concern in any project, especially a concern in a downtown project. So we've looked at what we have to have and what we're able to fit to put in a conventional parking lot. And we were able to fit 20 spots behind the building and 3 along the side. The final consideration that went into play is making sure that we're providing safe pedestrian access to and from the various parking facilities. And that those walking areas are wide enough to accommodate a lot of traffic. Because we're certainly going to have a lot of folks coming from the parking lots along South Street, up through the pedestrian alleys and along the side of the building, up to the front where both Muddy's and this building will enter. So put all that into the blender, and we were fortunate that the only things that really didn't work out relate to, first, as we noted, the building setback from the front right of way, the rear setback for the parking lot, in this instance, is brought pretty close to the alley to the south. And then as we start looking at the uses, we tried to make some reasonable substitutions where the code would call for certain landscaping requirements. We tried to make reasonable substitutions with planters and other green features that we think add to the architectural nature of the building. And again, I think our goal is we've tried to create a building that's architecturally unique. Certainly, at least I feel that it's going to be a prize in Worcester long after I'm gone, and that the features that we put in place are appropriate for the project. And appropriately, it fits with what we've done in other projects in this neighborhood. Very similar requests were made by Commercial and Savings Bank when the branch was pursued across the street, as with several of the other projects in the neighborhood. So with those things in mind, we certainly provided more color in the application as to the specific criteria, why we believe it's appropriate to grant the variances in this instance. But before I end, I do want to turn it over to Mike for a second, because I think it's important for the board to hear a little bit about what's going on the first floor in the context of this application.
Thank you, Matt. Mike Mariola. My address is 570 North Market Street, and I affirm to tell the truth. We are certainly very excited to be part of this project. I think Matt and Chad bring to the table a group of talented and capable developers who can put this project together. And I think on our end, what we can provide is a proven restaurant operator. And I think we're proposing to bring to town something in our community that's very much needed, which is a casual Italian restaurant at scale. We're looking at a couple hundred seats and the ability to really serve the guests that are looking for a to-go or delivery experience. So this project, I think, is very much in line with the strategic plan for downtown. And I think Matt and Chad have hired some really best-in-class designers to help with the architecture and the layout of the building. And from a use perspective, as a restaurateur, I can say that all of the proposed designs really meet our needs as a restaurant operator, and I think would work well with the buildings that surround us. So we're very excited about the project. I think it's a great opportunity, and I think we can really contribute to the continued development on East Liberty Street, and appreciate everybody's time, and I'm available for any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Mike and Matt. Any questions from members of the board? I guess I'll start with one for you, Matt. Since you're doing an infill and basically you're taking out a lot of parking area, is there sufficient parking area along South Street to accommodate potentially all 3 businesses?
Yeah, so as a threshold matter, we're part of the exempt parking district, so we're not legally required to provide any parking for the project. I I share your concern and have had extensive conversations with Mr. Dudden, who has assured me that the parking analysis is such that there's ample parking in the East Liberty Street neighborhood. Notwithstanding, we're in active discussions to further expand the parking in the district. I think it's worth noting that there's a new full-size city parking lot that's online immediately behind this project, behind Muddy's, that was done last year. We certainly control some of the other adjacent land around this property that will have parking. And of course, when you have shared businesses operating at different times and hours, a lot of that parking is shared as well. Actually, with the design of this project, we're able to bring a handful of spots back online on Liberty Street, which will also be nice. Again, parking is always a top of mind, but fortunately for strict compliance, we're not required to provide any.
Okay.
And I'll add to that, we did say to just construct the parking lot at South Street, as Matt's mentioned. We're also looking at opportunities along South Street and expanding our lot on North Street, as well as other options in the area. So that's something that the city is definitely taking seriously, and we feel it's going to be a benefit to further develop the area to provide the needed parking.
You know, I'm just thinking back to my days on Main Street, Worcester, where parking seemed to always be an issue.
Sometimes not a parking issue, sometimes it's a walking issue as well. So,
Well, yes, I remember well Sandra Hall's view of that. Other questions from members of the board? All right, hearing none. Andrew, let's go ahead and open the public hearing on this.
okay. Doesn't look like you've got any comments for this application either.
All right, thank you, Andrew. We will declare the public hearing closed. Are there any further questions from members of the board? Hearing none, is there a motion?
A motion that we approve the request as stated.
Second,
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Greg. And Ken, you seconded?
yes.
Okay, moved by Greg and seconded by Ken. Voting in the affirmative on BZA 21-16. Greg?
I'm going to vote yes. I think it's a great project. We'll be glad to see it. And with regards to the variances, it's always difficult to fit everything into a downtown property without needing some variances. And I don't think anything requested is unusual or unreasonable. So I will vote yes.
Okay, thank you, Greg. Ken?
I'm also voting yes. I think that the variances are the least in order to make the project work. the setback particularly is respectful of the building next door and trying to not make it stand out in an odd way. And I think the use of the space in the front for seating is going to be a great enhancement for the downtown in this area.
Okay, thank you, Ken. Ben?
Like my colleagues have stated, the variances requested are minimal. They're not highly impactful, and the tone of the neighborhood's not going to change that much. And like I said in the previous case, it'll probably actually improve that area of East Liberty. So I'll approve.
Okay, thank you, Ben. Mark?
I'm also going to vote yes. Letter C of our review criteria is whether the variance is substantial and the minimum necessary to complete the project. And while there might be a number of variances requested, none of them individually taken on their own merit are overly substantial. And so for that reason, I'm going to vote yes.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Doug?
I'm going to vote yes. I mean, what I wrote down was sort of what exactly Mark just said. And I agree with Greg and Ken, and Ken particularly, at least to make it work. So I'm saying yes.
Okay, thank you, Doug. I guess I'd like to start by commending Matt, Chad, and Mike for putting together such a nice plan for downtown development. You know, again, having been involved with Main Street Worcester and having worked downtown for many years, I'm a fan of downtown and all the good that's been done down there. And I think this is just another example of enhancing what's good about our downtown and filling a blank space. So I commend you all for that. As my colleagues have said, and I think you've demonstrated in your documents, taken as a whole, the project fits very nicely in the downtown. It does what the code is intending in terms of a consistent and harmonious downtown development. So I second everything that my colleagues have said, and I too will vote yes. So therefore your application is approved, and we look forward to another great project in downtown Worcester.
Thank you, everybody. And Stuart, thanks for the kind words.
Thank you.
Have a nice evening, everybody.
Thank you
Appreciate
all.
it. Thanks.
All right, last but not least, we have application BZA 21-17. Robert Reynolds requesting an area variance from Planning and Zoning Code Section 1117.02F to allow development within a riparian corridor setback at a property with parcel number 67-00948, located west of Lockwood Glen and east of Woodcrest Drive in a planned development zoning district. Is there someone here to speak on behalf of this application?
Mr. Fitzgibbon, I am Bob Reynolds. I am live at 839 Forest, and I affirm to tell the truth. I think that's the necessary prerequisite here. I'm here on behalf. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Please proceed.
Thank you.
If I can interject real quickly, Mark, were you going to recuse yourself from this application?
Yes, I apologize. I didn't realize I had to state that. I will be recusing myself from this application.
Thanks.
So noted.
I'm here on behalf of Lauren Mingay, who is available for comment, and if questions arise, I may punt it back to her for comment. But this is kind of a catch-22 situation. The ordinance that we're seeking the variance from prohibits any type of development in a riparian corridor. We're looking to build a retention basin. In fact, are required to build a retention basin pursuant to a mandate from the Army Corps of Engineers. And by its very nature, a retention basin has to go where the water goes, which is in the riparian waterway. So, we're fulfilling a technical requirement to get a variance in order to build the retention basin. It's been on the plans that have been approved by the Army Corps for over 10 years. And I kind of apologize for bearing you with a bunch of documents that were probably very difficult to read. And when I got to the end, I thought, well, we got some cleaner ones we submitted that I think maybe give a better picture, and the one that's up actually does a great job of it. There's been a retention basin on this plan for the Tartan Ridge development from the very outset. Originally, the plan was for the street to run all the way through and connect to Woodcrest, and it's been proceeding in phases. And in the fall, the final phase was approved, and that plan was dropped, and instead with a cul-de-sac there further up the hill. But the retention basin is still necessary at the bottom because that's where the water is going to go. So we're just seeking permission, or we're seeking a variance to allow us to do that. The retention basin will be built in conformance with the requirements set by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and also the City of Worcester Engineering Department has their own requirements that will be required to comply with in the construction of the retention basin. So beyond that, if there's any questions, we'd be happy to try to answer them.
So just to help us understand what's going on here, what does the red box that's being displayed on our screens represent?
That represents the area where the retention basin is going to go.
Okay. And then the green lines are the Riparian Way?
Correct. That's the Riparian Corridor.
Okay.
It's based off a certain distance off the center line of the, I wouldn't necessarily call it a stream because it's not one of those things that's always got water in it. But
no,
when it does rain, that's where it goes.
Right.
And,
okay. And so the Army Corps of Engineers has approved the retention basin being in the Riparian Way, but the city code also then requires a variance to allow that retention pond to go where it's proposed.
the city code really requires a variance for any type of construction that is within the riparian corridor. And this makes a lot more sense why it's there. If we were looking to put a house foundation in there, that would be crazy, and that's why it would be prohibited. Arguably, maybe there should be an exception for retention basins in that ordinance, but it's it comes up rarely enough that it's probably worth that it is subject to review at the time to make sure that it is in accordance with all the appropriate regulations.
Okay, and so presumably we don't see the topography really on this drawing, but the lots are presumably uphill above that retention basin.
Yes.
So the water is going to go essentially make a turn.
There it is.
Okay.
And so a little bit of a description of the riparian corridor, and the reason we're kind of addressing this after the subdivision was approved. The corridor is based on a calculation, so it's not something where it's a 10-foot setback or a 20-foot setback. It's based on a calculation done by our engineering division. So that's why that was kind of recently calculated when we had a better idea of exactly where that basin was going to go. And it is correct. There are very few things that are allowed to go in the riparian corridor. Those are engineering standards. but obviously the base is not one of those things that's included.
Okay.
Question two, is there a retaining pond? I mean, I drove over there, but I didn't venture up the road. It was pretty kind of overgrown, but is there a retention pond there already? Of any sort?
There's not, and the road is not there. It stubs there. It will not connect. So as shown on that plan, that cul-de-sac will be the only new road constructed, and there will be no road connecting to Woodcrest there.
Oh, okay. So it comes down from above. And essentially, how about since there's no retaining pond, have any of the houses along Woodcrest had any problems historically from that?
I believe we did have some comments of stormwater issues in the past. I'm not going to say this is going to solve all those issues, but this will certainly accommodate the additional runoff from I think that's 6 or 7 homes built on the cul-de-sac there.
Okay, so they're going to build it down below. So the cul-de-sac you're talking about is to the right, and it's up above. I mean, I saw the hill. It's up above where the retaining pond is. So it should run on past down there. That's what the hope is anyway, right?
Yeah, there's a significant grade change here,
Right.
from the cul-de-sac to Woodcrest. So this is basically at the bottom of a hill.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
And that's
Andrew?
part of why the, from the early stages, and this stems all the way back to the hospice development with the pond there up on 585. This is the back end of that project in a way. And that's why the Corps of Engineers, when they got involved early, they wanted some type of retention or detention facility at the western end of this to address runoff issues.
Now, just so I'm clear, is this where the retention pond was originally designed back in what, 2011?
No, if you saw correspondence on that's referencing an actual pond that's right behind hospice.
Okay, so then since this is changing, since the plans are changing and everything else, does it need to go through a review of the Corps of Engineers again, just to get the final sign off, since it did change and it's not what they originally approved?
I think this is what they originally approved. This is consistent with their original approval. But they have been in contact with the Corps, and they have a stormwater engineer working with them to make sure that this is in compliance.
But you haven't got that sign off yet?
Yes, we did. In fact, we got a letter today. Andrew, can I? No.
Yeah, that's the 2011 letter.
Yeah.
That's my abilities here, which is.
I think that's the only letter I have in the file here. Yeah, that's the only one I have in the.
Yes, this just came in today.
In any event, the project needs to satisfy both the city and the Army Corps. We don't have any jurisdiction over what the Army Corps decides. So I mean, it's on the developer to meet both the requirements or get a variance.
Yeah, so even if we approve a variance, that it's a separate question whether or not they have adequate approval from the Army Corps.
That is correct. This does not give us a pass. I mean, the Army Corps of Engineers laughs at Worcester City zoning ordinances.
Yeah, that's an understatement.
Andrew, did you get the email?
Stop sharing it.
And now that I'm seeing that,
It doesn't look like I'm getting it for some reason.
I'll try that again.
And presumably, since much of the project has already been completed, there are no floodplain issues with where the lots have been sited relative to the waterway, are there?
I don't believe there's any designated floodplain in this this area.
Okay.
When did the street connection, when was that abandoned? Was that in the last few years that the decision was made not to connect the street?
That was formally done with the planning commission in September of 2020, just so 6 months ago.
Past September, okay, yeah. Because it
And I
seems
think
that was a good thing to avoid having this steep hill. I can imagine the city maintenance would have hated that in the wintertime, wouldn't they?
I think Lauren's better able to speak to that than I can, but you know, as you can see from the maps, that got to be quite a challenge, I think.
Yeah.
Extending lots down, you know, not only the street issues, but the construction issues of building down that hillside.
Right.
Yes, and I'm Lauren Mingay, and my business address is 213 West Liberty Street, and I affirm to tell the truth. This
Thank
is
you.
a private community, so the city services, it's I believe, Andrew, that they're, you know, they provide the trash services. Do you guys you don't do the streets though? We take care of the streets as far as the HOA. So, but with that said, it is a very steep decline. And so construction on that would be almost impossible. So venturing further down the south side was not an option. Yes, and this is the letter we received today.
Andrew, could you blow that up to page width, please?
It's
It's a little hard to,
little technical in nature. I don't know if there's a
well, a little hard to read at all.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I can see we're getting rid of that road, help deal with their concerns. Everybody gotten through that?
So I think this is kind of a
Yeah, well, and again, as we've been informed here, our decision really has nothing to do with the Army's decision, but it's of some comfort to know that it appears that the project will be allowed to go forward by the Army.
And we're also still subject to the engineering department's requirements on the actual construction of the basin. Those are in there, so we're not asking for a blank check in any way to.
Right, you just need the variance to allow the project to proceed, subject to all the usual conditions.
That is correct.
Okay, other questions from members of the board? All right, hearing none. Andrew, let's open this for public hearing on application BZA 21-17.
It doesn't appear I'm getting any comments for this application either.
All right, then we will close the public hearing. Are there any further questions from members of the board? All right, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll motion to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, I'm sorry, who made the motion? Was that you, Ben?
Yes.
Okay. All right, moved by Ben and seconded by Greg, I believe.
Yes.
Voting in the affirmative on BZA 21-17. Ben?
I'll vote yes. With the change in the plans and the information we talked about here tonight, I think it's the minimum requirements that they need. They still have to meet other requirements for the basin. So the impact is relatively small. So I think this should be approved.
Okay, thank you, Ben. Greg?
I vote yes also. It's just my understanding they're asking to put the basin in the riparian. I don't know if I'm saying that right away, and that that's going to be subject to U.S. Army Corps of Engineers engineering and approval. So I think it will be done well, and I vote yes.
Okay, thank you, Greg. Ken?
I'm voting yes. It looks to me like you're simply digging a deeper hole for the water to go in, because that's where the water is anyway.
Yeah. All right, thank you, Ken. Doug?
Well, I agree with Ben and Greg, and with the basin requirements and all that still have to, I guess, be completed. I'm going to vote yes.
Okay, thank you, Doug. I too will vote yes. I think this application ought to be the dictionary definition of a unique circumstance. And I think with the involvement of the Army Corps of Engineers and the city engineer, that the neighborhood should be assured of it being done properly, and hopefully it will be of benefit to the community. So I too will vote yes, and your application is approved.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, is there any further business to come before us tonight? I see nothing on our agenda. Andrew, anything?
I'll just note that our next meeting will be in person at City Hall on July 1st.
Okay, then.
We have to wear long pants, or is that,
Optional.
But you have to put pants on.
there you go, thank you.
Okay, too much information.
Too much information.
I was getting pretty comfortable with the Zoom meetings.
Yeah, there's something to be said for not having to travel, but it is what it is.
It is.
All right, thanks for the reminder, Andrew.
Sure.
All right, hearing no further business, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Thank you, Ken. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second.
All right, moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, say no at peril of your life and limb. All right, we are adjourned.
Thank you.